Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and what a delight, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've hired private investigators. I've hired retired Navy SEALs, and it's taken us about 6 months to find him, but we found him. He's back, he's alive, and we didn't have to pay any ransom to get him. Our good buddy, Bob Just, live from New York.
Good to be here. You looked all over New York, didn't you, Perry?
Yeah, live from New York. It's Wednesday Morning Live. How you doing, buddy?
Great, Perry. It's great to be with you. It really is. It's good, and especially at this time in our American history.
Wow. Good to see you. Well, listen, a lot to talk about, and we only have you a little bit here. Anyway, the big movie is really hitting. Dinesh D'Souza's Hillary's America, over $12 million. Have you seen it? What do you think?
Yeah, I ran right out to see it, Perry. I actually saw it the first show of the first day, so it worked out for me in my schedule, but I really wanted to see it. I'm telling you something, it's shocking to see everything put together in a 2-hour span. It's a kind of overload, but it's a good overload. Generally, I was impressed. I'm impressed with all of D'Souza's movies. You know, he's a smart guy, and he's well-researched. And he doesn't mess around, as you can tell, you know, if you see the movie. So I would definitely urge people to rush out to see it as soon as they can. I don't know if it's still playing in Southern Oregon, but I know you reach further than that, and hopefully people can go. And I know the DVD is going to be released early. You know, I'm pretty sure they're going to release the DVD before the election. So, you know, people should have home parties and show that movie to friends who are sitting on the fence.
Would you disagree that it is an accurate documentary of the Democratic Party?
No, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's put in a dramatic form. Look, the slavery history of the Democratic Party is clear and on the record, as is the Jim Crow history. The party went through a leftist transformation in the 60s and the 70s, but that is the party's history, and they are a statist party. You know, one shorthand way, Perry, that I tell people to think about the Democratic Party is imagine what if you're a political party and you don't believe there's a God? You don't believe in America's Judeo-Christian history. You just think it's all materialistic. Here we are. You know, Jonah Goldberg was interviewed in the movie. One of the comments he makes in Hillary's America, the Dinesh D'Souza movie, is he says, look, Russia had communism, Italy had fascism, and America had progressivism. So he goes through the history of the 19th century, including President Jackson, who was a Democrat, dealing with the American Indians and the suffering that he put them through. He deals, of course, with slavery. But he starts out, before I get to the progressive era, which was a fascinating part of the documentary, goes into Alinsky, goes into eugenics and all of those things. But the interesting thing is he starts the movie out in prison, and he talks about why he was convicted of a relatively minor thing compared to the people he's in the prison with, you know, murderers. And what he does is he sets it up and says, look, he's talking to criminals, and he says, well, how do you do this? What do you do? How does the system work? And they say, look, first you have to have a plan. Then you have to pitch the plan, and then the take happens. And that's when you get whatever you're trying to get as a thief. And if you're caught, deny, deny, deny. And that's how he starts the movie, to say, look, the Democratic Party is operating kind of like a crime family. And by the way, two Washington Post reporters wrote a book. I can't remember the title of it, but they wrote a book in the late 90s about the Clintons. And they literally, and this is two Washington Post reporters, they said the Clintons operate like a crime family. That's a paraphrase, but almost they use the phrase crime family. So it's not, though, when you see D'Souza's movie, it's not that strange what he's saying, if you know that.
Well, it's been said that they are the new mafia, but more importantly, you and I have had conversations in the past. One of the reasons that you remain a Democrat, which is a mystery to me, but But you want to recall the Democratic Party of the 50s, I guess, or some before the 60s and the 70s. But it now has evolved into this. I don't even know what to describe it. It is into some kind of anti-America machine, and I'm thinking, wow, it doesn't support God. It's against the sanctity of life. It wants Israel thrown under the bus. It wants to advance radical Islam. I mean, it just seems to be everything against who we want to be, and yet it's growing.
Well, I wouldn't say they want to advance radical Islam, but I know what you mean. They don't know how to deal with radical Islam. They don't know how to separate radical Islam from moderate Islam, and they're incompetent, Perry. Look, there's so much to talk about on this level. It's the reason why in 2014 I wrote my WorldNet Daily column, Democrat Voter Strike, Change Our Party Now, which people can Google with my name, Bob Justin. You'll find it. You're dealing with a level of incompetence because, look, the Bible says that people who say there is no God are fools. But somehow in the 19th century, the elite in America decided, well, not if you go to Harvard, not if you have a degree from Princeton. They couldn't possibly be fools. But what we're seeing now is the culmination. Remember, Abraham Lincoln said in 1863, you and I have talked about this for years on the Dove. He said in 1863 in his proclamation, Abraham Lincoln said, we have forgotten God. And you extrapolate forward from there, and that's why I said, what if a party was formed around, I won't call it atheist because a lot of them self-identify Christian, or some of them do, but it's a party of unbelief. There's no relationship there. They think, well, we got to roll up our sleeves and take care of everything ourselves. So it's basically a secular party. And so the result of that, and that's why I'm very shortly going to be launching my blog, DemocratsForAmerica.com, because what do I mean by America? Well, just what my friend Perry Atkinson means. Under God, constitutional, democratic republic called the United States of America. And with all its, yes, we have flaws, plenty of flaws, and we all admit them, and some horrific things in history. But the reality is you can't name a major nation in this world that doesn't have ugly things, doesn't have sins in its history. The fact of the matter is that America's founders created a beautiful thing, and that thing we have charge over. It's our responsibility to pass the baton on to the next generation. Good analogy in this time of Olympics. We got to pass that baton. We got to run our individual race, and then we got to make sure the baton is passed to the next generation. And this election is about whether we are going to pass the baton to, in the context of an American country, a United States of America, under God America, or whether we are going to drop it and it's going to be taken over by people that don't recognize the America and don't love the America we love.
It appears that the Democratic Party and Democrats have stolen from the Christians the ability to love unconditionally.
Yeah, that's interesting. Love unconditionally doesn't mean we don't correct. I mean, a parent, of course, loves their children unconditionally, but a parent punishes. A parent's responsibility is to protect the child from too much reality when it's young, so it doesn't corrupt, so it doesn't get fearful, because you want to raise strong, courageous children. Okay, so you want to protect a 4-year-old from too much reality. But when the child is 13 and 14, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you must, as a parent, start to bring that child into adult responsibility, into the real world. Otherwise, you are spoiling that child by keeping, reality away from them. And so I think we have to remember, unconditional love doesn't mean, oh, everything's okay and you're always nice and you're always special and you never do anything wrong because you're my kid. No, that's what spoiling parents do.
But our correction I get totally what you're saying, and you're spot on with it. But our correction is perceived as bigotry and intolerance.
Yeah, right, Perry, right on as usual. I mean, that's the point. That's the irony of the moment we're in, is that the left, very clever. I mean, we're dealing with politics is no longer politics, Perry, as you and I have been talking about for years. Politics is spiritual warfare. It's a spiritual battleground. I mean, probably was solidly became that with the introduction of abortion and in the early 70s, and by the late 70s, the party split over abortion. I mean, Jesse Jackson used to be pro-life in the mid 70s. By the late 70s, early 80s, Jesse Jackson was pro-abortion. So the battle is a spiritual one, and we have to remember that. So getting to the issue, I mean, I think that the Democratic Party has positioned our rightful desire to correct, to speak truth to power, to help those who are disadvantaged very often because they don't know the truth, to try to let them know what the truth is. And the moment we do, we get attacked, just as you're saying, whether it's called bigots or hateful or whatever it is. So if you're a person who's fairly well off and successful in your life, not rich, but just functional, doing well, and you say, hey, we need to help the poor buck up. I mean, we need to say, you need to stand, you need to be strong. You think of the story of Dr. Ben Carson's mother. I mean, here was an illiterate woman who had 2 boys. She was abandoned by her husband. She's all alone. She's working as a maid, so she's doing good, honest work, but it's a hard day. And she tells her 2 sons, when she realizes that successful people read, they don't tube out, they don't sit in front of the TV and vegetate, they read. And she tells her 2 sons, you must read 2 books a week, and you must write a book report on each book, and I'm going to correct it. And of course, the children didn't know she was illiterate. So there she is looking through their book reports and checking on the margin to help them, to discipline them. So they think, well, mom's going to be looking over my shoulder. This woman is a hero, an American hero. I was greatly honored. It's on my website, bobjust.com, to interview when I filled in for Sean Hannity, to interview Dr. Carson. And I told the producer, tell him I want to talk about his mom. That's what I want to talk about because she's an American hero. Well, those somehow, and this is what I think Donald Trump's speech last night was about.
Hey, Bob,
help the inner city neighborhoods, genuinely help them.
Let me interrupt. I got to do a quick break. You're on a Bob Just roll. Push your own pause button, because I do want to get into Donald Trump. Let me take a quick break. Our good buddy Bob Just is with us this morning. We're Skyping him in live from New York City. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Okay, we're back, and we're with our good buddy Bob Just, live from New York. Yep, and we're talking to him about the various things. Of course, if you haven't seen Hillary's America, the film that's now been a box office hit by Dinesh D'Souza, which has now reached over $12 million, you may want to check it out and take a look at it. But Bob, I want to switch over what time we got left here to the race. It's been a tough couple of weeks for Donald Trump. He's reorganized his campaign, according to the news this morning. He's completely reshuffled the players in his campaign. He's down in the polls, but coming up. And Hillary's got a lot of problems now, in addition to overall credibility. We've seen where the House Republicans have now going for perjury charges through the DOJ against her. And it looks like there is now a connection between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department on some real estate deals. What's your assessment of the race so far?
Well, I think the Democrats, Jonah Goldberg's book, very popular, written in 2005, it was called Liberal Fascism. He has a big yellow smiley face on the cover of the book. And that's the way the Democrats came across in their convention. It was this big, boy, we love America, flag waving, warm and fuzzy. And of course, has nothing to do with the angry heart of the Democratic Party and what it's become. I think she got a huge bounce off of that. And then Trump, of course, had a terrible period of time where the media took advantage of everything he said that was off script. And, of course, this is a guy who speaks from the heart, and he's not usually on script. His speech on terrorism, fighting terrorism the night before last was great. His speech last night was great. He's saying things that need to be said, Perry. And so I think the people are going to start to catch that, and he'll start to come back. That's my view. It's going to be a tight race. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I think it needs some settling down. His last two speeches, I will agree with you. His last two speeches, keep him on teleprompter, he does pretty well. But he's on the right subject, and that's national security. And I think that resonates with a lot of Americans. Really,
really. You think of the points he hit in fighting terrorism. We got to stand with the nations who stand with us. And of course, he named Israel, which is not something I think President Obama would have done. He said he wanted a plan for a coalition of nations to fight terrorism in a very real way, including psychological ops, cyber warfare, those kinds of things, and also, bottom line, protect the homeland. And of course, he was very persuasive. I don't know if you heard the whole thing, but he opens up by listing point after point after point of how the Democratic Party, the Obama-Clinton State Department, failed the American people. And it's just vivid. It's incredible what they've done. And then last night, he does something that I don't think I've heard before. He went up there and talked about the crime problem in Milwaukee, and he talked about the inner cities, and he said something that is absolutely true. They have been abandoned by my party. There's all this talk about helping the poor, but it's all about money from the federal government, and then who knows who takes off the cream off the top before it does any good with people. The bottom line reality is the Milwaukee mayor is Democrat. They haven't had a Republican mayor since the early 20th century, Perry, if you can imagine. So those two speeches in a row, I think, really kind of set up the next move.
Do you think there is enough of irritated Americans who want to vote for somebody who's not a politician to make up for the establishment Republicans who probably won't vote for Trump, might even vote for Hillary?
Yeah, it's really hard to imagine. And you know where I'm coming from, how much this reveals about certain people in leadership in the conservative movement, knowing what they know about the Democratic Party and knowing what they know about the Clintons, are willing to even consider voting for Hillary Clinton or not voting for Trump, meaning which is effectively a vote for Hillary Clinton. This is, look, every vote counts. You remember I ran for commissioner out in Josephine County. I lost by 58 votes, 58 votes. That means if I had turned around 30 people, if 30 people who voted for my opponent had voted for me, the election would have been different. Votes in this election, votes matter. And if people are even thinking of saying, oh, I don't like either person, I'm not going to vote, that is a terrible, terrible mistake. You have two different parties. One party is an identifiably American party, Perry, and the other party is not identified. They can wave all the American flags they want. They are not an identifiably American party. That's why my blog, DemocratsForAmerica.com. I want to make the point, if you read, and you know this, Perry, if you read sections of President Kennedy's inaugural address, you'd think you were hearing a Republican talk. That's because the two parties used to love America in the same way. They just had slightly different methodologies of doing good for the country and leading the country. But they both loved the country. Do you feel that from the Democratic Party? I don't.
All right, but Bob, on the right, we're divided and angry. We are not united, and that's dangerous, isn't it?
It is. It is. I have to tell you something. If I had been able to vote Republican, I would have voted for Ted Cruz. My reaction at the convention when he wouldn't endorse Trump, it was not good. I mean, I honestly don't think I could vote for Cruz again, because he had a moment to put the country first with all his flaws, Donald Trump is night and day compared to Hillary Clinton. Night and day. And I'm not just talking about the judges, the justices of the Supreme Court. That's, of course, very important. But how the Democrats handle foreign policy, how they handle domestic policy, their general feelings towards Americans. The two parties are completely different. So, yeah, we have a problem. You know what I'm hoping, Perry? I'd love your view on this. I am really hoping that many of the prominent establishment, the Bushes, the Romneys, you name them, in the Republican Party will realize what you and I are talking about now. And in September, maybe early October, will come forward and say, look, we've been listening to what Hillary Clinton's been saying. We've been watching this campaign unfold. And although we have reservations about Donald Trump, there is no comparison between the two people and the two parties. We stand with Trump. I mean, can you imagine the news headline that would make?
It needs to happen. I don't know if it will. I mean, John Kasich didn't show up at the convention, and it's in his home state. You got George W. and H.W. Bush didn't do anything. Romney actually was out campaigning against Trump. I don't know. I think the feelings are deep and hard. But here's the thing. Trump has brought out more people in the primary election to vote for him than anybody ever. And
it's true.
A majority of those people are people who are anti-political establishment. My question goes back to the original one. Are enough of those to sway the election if the established Republicans sit it out? Because if they don't vote, I think they want Hillary because it's job security.
Oh, God. I know. What a horrible thought. I know Rush Limbaugh talks about that, too. I would like to think that most Republicans, I'm not talking liberal, left Republicans, because I think they are basically Democrats, but I think most conservative Republicans will go into that voting booth and vote for Donald Trump. And they may not talk about it. I live in Manhattan here. I'm right in the middle of Manhattan. Believe me, I've had many discussions with people. And the attitude, of course, this is Democrat central here. But the attitude is Trump is unthinkable. You know who's unthinkable? The Clintons. It is unthinkable to let the Clintons back into the White House. Bill Clinton as the first gentleman? Gentleman? Really? Is going to be in the White House? Are we going to allow the first woman in American history to be Hillary Clinton? Think of the wonderful women who could be the first woman who will be studied by young, girls and boys for the rest of our history. The first woman president. Do we want them studying the Clintons? Really? I don't think so. And I'm hoping a lot of people will come to that decision by early November.
Well, as always, Bob, you're a delight, brother. Good to see you.
It's great to see you, Perry, I have to tell you. I miss Oregon.
Now that we got a good connection, we'll have you on often between now and October and November, because I really think that you express well a lot of people's thinking. But we are frustrated, and we're, there's so much other thing. We didn't get into the faith aspect of Trump, but let's do that next time we connect. And
yeah, I heard that Dobson called him a baby Christian, so I was glad of that.
Yeah. Well, good to see you, friend. Best to you.
Likewise,
give your mom a hug for us, okay?
I will do. Will do.
All right. Thank you, buddy. All right. We'll be right back.